Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today here on Teens Talks TV. Our topic for today is social justice 1 year later. We will be discussing social justice with the same lovely guest that we had this time about a year ago. We're so honored and so happy to have you all with us. We'll do ladies first, and please just introduce yourself, please.
I'll go. My name is Allyson Smith. I am a current rising junior at Howard University from Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Madison, for inviting me. Thank you for the space.
Good evening, guys. My name is Solange Muller, a rising sophomore at Temple University from Washington, D.C., a familiar face as I am the design intern.
Okay, I'm just gonna assume it's me, but hey everyone, hope you're doing well. My name is David Hill, currently a rising junior at Harvard, from the DC area originally, and also glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Maddie.
No problem. So as I mentioned, these are the same group of guests that we had last time. So we would kind of just like to get an idea and kind of a feel about what you guys think our racial climate here is in America. Since we saw you guys last, we've had different presidents. We have more politicians that look like us. So we kind of just want to get into that and kind of pick your brains if you guys think that there's some good change heading our way, or if these politicians were just talking the talk for the vote. So with that being said, Allyson, you could start us off. What do you think social justice looks like in 2021? Do you think that Black Lives Matter movement was just a phase, or do you think that it's here to stay?
I will say that it's very a case-by-case situation. I think that there's some people who are still definitely on the ground doing this work. But there were also some people who were there for performative reasons, for brand deals. You know how that was going. We had a lot of activists who were, in the limelight, who are actually now like coming under fire because the family and the mothers of the Black people who were unfortunately not here anymore are speaking out about them not, giving them the funding that they were supposed to be advertised of giving them and all of this. So I definitely think that it was a case-by-case thing. And right now, I will say that we are seeing the effects of like Black women always doing what they have done for America, which is advocate for it and advocate for our people. Specifically right now with Cori Bush and the homeless eviction thing that's happening in DC right now. We see that activism does work, that protesting does work, but we've also seen that like America is in a very difficult place. Like what just happened with the Capitol Hill thing, we're seeing basically the effects of what we did last summer, and we're seeing people who don't look like us do it, and the outcome is significantly different. So that's how it's looking right now. It's in a very middle gray spot right now. I feel hopeful some days, discouraged the others, but I'm just gonna keep doing this work for myself and for my people. So yeah, that's how it's looking for me right now.
That sounds great. David, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I have a couple things to add. I want to talk to it. I don't want to speak just to it on from a policies perspective, but also I want to speak to it from what I've seen a lot of corporate companies and other just companies kind of doing in the aftermath of it all, and kind of my take on that. So as I'm sure a lot of us who are on this call have noted with our internships and whatnot, a lot of our employers are, really committed to these diversity programs, increasing the number of Black and Brown women, people from marginalized communities in their workforce. I've seen it in, tech, seen it in consulting, finance. I've seen it in biotechnology, a bunch of different industries, but I think that's only, that only gets you too far. I think getting into the workplace is one thing, but I think, if we're really looking to make meaningful change, you have to have these people in higher up positions and managerial executive positions. And that's something that I haven't necessarily seen a commitment to across the board. But with that being said, I think it's baby steps, it's progress, and we're getting there. The other thing is, just in the aftermath of one, the pandemic, and two, all that we've seen in the past year, I think there is a lot more sensitivity to issues regarding social justice. We see, like, even thinking about like the baby recently getting cut from all these different lineups. And I guess it's not necessarily like talking about it a Black issue, but for his comments about the LGBTQ community, which is also, again, social justice. But I also think, like, with that situation, you're kind of picking and choosing which issues you want to kind of delegate to, because this man also did bring up Meg Thee Stallion's abuser. So you're thinking about things like, are we going to really critique him for comments that so many other artists have made about a certain community, whereas there was a blatant other issue that's kind of been swept under the rug. So it's kind of like we're definitely seeing, more attention going towards one thing, but it's like at the expense of the others. Really, what progress are we going to see overall in general? So that's kind of just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, and actually, that's perfect because it gets me to my next question, talking about what we pay attention to and who we pay attention to and who is kind of placed at the back burner. So with that being said, not too long ago, there was an Asian safety legislation. There was legislation that was passed to, I believe it was the COVID safety bill, if I'm correct. So what do you guys know about the COVID-19 Asian American safety bill? And how do you feel about the lack thereof of safety legislations for African Americans in this nation who have not, been facing issues just during COVID-19, but we've been experiencing issues since 1619 when we first got here. So can anybody talk about their feelings about that and how we could possibly get some legislation and something in writing that could protect us as we progress as a nation?
So I can say something to this, because from my understanding, it was the End Asian Hate Bill. Is that what you're referring to? Okay. So I think that, one, we must acknowledge that oppression is a very nonlinear thing and that people go through things, but also we must acknowledge that Black people's tears do not reach that of legislative offices. So I think that when we talk about this oppression Olympics and all of that, we have to see who's actually going to have a shot at winning that race. Because when we talk about oppression Olympics, we're not trying to, it's so like people say, like, we're not batting oppression against oppression, but are we really going to get to a goal? Like, are we really going to have those changes and those like legislative things that other minorities have had? And those two things can exist. You can say that, yes, this is a very wrong act that is happening to Asian Americans, but also let's not ignore the Black people who have been mobilizing and organizing for so long. So I think it's very much so, it's a gray area, like all things, it's a gray area. And my feelings are that let's have the same energy. Yeah, that's really it. Let's have the same energy for Black people.
I agree. Anybody else like to chip in?
I have to say and be honest that I don't know much about what is going on with the legislation in that area. I would agree with what Allyson just said, that we do need more like equality on both sides, that it is not only like just for this one group or just for this one party, but for everybody, if that's what the end goal is. I do think now, and thinking of what my answer would have been to your last question, how has it changed within the last year? We have, from my side of things, seen a little bit of progress, but not enough.
Okay, thank you for that. So speaking of last year, and as we've hit a year of reflecting on all of the movements and what we were all kind of noting, which was different about last summer, that might have been different from Black Lives Matter protests in the past, is that we saw more people who were not of color out there being allies and standing beside us and standing with us. So now that it's been a whole year, do you really think that people in those communities truly understand and grasp what that was all about? Or do you think it was part of the movement? And if you do think that they were really about that action and were really for Black people, how do you think allies can show that their support isn't just temporary?
Yeah, I can go and get started. So I will say, in the aftermath of all of this, one thing that I've noted is like I'm having a lot more conversations about race with people and my friends who aren't necessarily Black. A lot of people have asked me about my own experiences, friends, and I guess just people who are curious the like, which sometimes gets annoying, but other times I'm welcome to share because I just want people to be on the same page. Um, but I will say overall, I think a lot of what we kind of saw a year ago was kind of fueled by the actions of everyone else. So that's kind of why we've seen a decline in, I guess, the support in the aftermath. But I will say that there's still a lot of options for those who do want to get involved. It doesn't necessarily have to be continuing to post on your stories or anyway or anything like that. But I think just continuously educating people, calling people out when their biases kind of seep through, but doing so in a way that allows for them to learn and not learn in an authentic way, rather than just harping on them for their faults. I think that's definitely one way that anyone can kind of contribute to the solution, whether it be just at at the family table, because I think that's where a lot of the those microaggressions will come out. So I think correcting those microaggressions to get to the cause, and allowing people to kind of look within for the causes of those microaggressions is, I think, one way that we can help, or allies can help, in the future moving forward.
I completely agree. What do you think, Allyson?
I did not know that my microphone was not muted, but I completely agree with what David said. I think that I thought a piece on this for Dean Vogue about allyship, and I wrote about. I will agree. I will admit that I wrote from a place of anger, because I wasn't seeing allyship like I envisioned it to be. But I think that definitely during those protests and marches that were held here in my town, specifically of Memphis, Tennessee, like the people who we had as allies, they were on the ground. And when police came, they would stand in front of us and they would make sure that we are safe. The organizers are safe. So I would say that definitely here in Memphis, there was a fantastic front with our allies and those who support us, but also you're going to have those like 3 allies who are with you, like who are down for you and down for you forever. But also you'll see that dwindling force of people checking in on you of this and that. And honestly, I try not to take that too personal because people have their lives, but also I know who's like a true ally and who's going to still stick up, even though, all of the actions are done, but they're never ending though. But I would just say that I have definitely seen some amazing allies and people who are good allies or who fall under that label.
Well, I completely agree. David, you kind of mentioned people talking to you and asking you more questions. I'm a tour guide here at Howard University. And yesterday I had a student who was not Black, who was touring Howard, who asked if him coming to Howard was taking up some safe Black space, and asked if this is a space that he should really be in. And so I am appreciating people being just a little bit more aware, a little bit more cognitive about the spaces that they're in, and making sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to do and not really disrespecting or intruding other people's spaces. But with that being said, let's get a little bit into politics. So as we reflect on 45, do you think that the president that is in office impacts the nation? And do you think that whoever is our commander in chief is in a way kind of setting the tone for what the next 4 years can look like, or setting the tone or setting a set of expectations for the way that citizens should behave?
I'll say something about this because I've been struggling with this question for a very long time. And I will say that as citizens citizens, what we experienced under the Trump administration was awful. And that kind of warped us to come into this mindset of anything but Trump. And anything from that is a progress. So I think about what truly is progress then. How do we hold someone accountable when we've been through so much carnage in our lives and seeing all this, like the riots and everything, like at Capitol Hill? So I think about what truly is progress and how are we holding these elected officials accountable. But I will say that there truly has not been a very there has not been anything that I have been impressed with from our current administration. I would say there has not been anything that is truly life-changing for people like me and people of my socioeconomic status. And a lot of people, I remember, when Kamala was first introduced as VP, a lot of people were happy, and we were all on this collective front of joy. But also, we have to realize that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And also that sometimes policies will warp how someone views their certain position in life. So I think that we can acknowledge representation and know that that is a good thing, but also we can see that these policies are more so detrimental than they are helpful. So that's my little 2 cents on that.
Thank you for that. David?
I don't really have much to say. Besides the fact that I study biology, politics has never been my forte. But I will say in the first year of Biden's term, I've checked the, political updates far less than I did in the first year of Trump's term. And I don't know if that's because I hated Trump more than I like Biden, or just the fact that he hasn't necessarily done anything. And I think it's probably because I attribute it to the latter more. And that's just kind of all I have to say on that.
Okay, thank you. And so there's been a handful of debates, and people were talking about this and debating about this back when Emmett Till's family made this decision. But over the past year, unfortunately, we've seen murder after murder after murder recorded, reposted, shown on the 5 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news, 7 o'clock news, nonstop for days, months even. And, we're still looking at footage of George Floyd, even after his trial has already, been dealt with the way that it has. So do you think that these killings are, recording them, do you think that it's kind of like a call of action to people in our communities? Or do you think that it's more traumatizing and does more harm than it is encouraging people to hold these public servants accountable for their actions?
I'll jump in really quick and say I do see both sides of that as it being a call to action and a little bit traumatizing. A call to action in the sense that pushing for justice, or at least a conviction for the police officers that do commit these crimes, that it has worked. Even if a little bit, even if not as much as we were expecting or we think that the families deserve, it does happen and it does work. Now, also traumatizing because I don't think that it's fair to the families as much to see their son or their daughter, or their father, or their sister, whoever, life be taken the way that it was by somebody who swore to protect your community. And I see that, especially on social media, with so many times on different pages and different outlets, and how do you feel about this, or what should we do about this? It also attributes to where it happens, because the laws are different in different states and the communities are sort of knit together in a different sort of way. So something that may happen on the East Coast may not be, as followed as something that happens in the southern states, where that's like, wow, that could really, start some stuff and really, change the way we view those who are around to protect us, such as law enforcement.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I think it's tough. I don't think there's a clear answer. I think there's definitely, well, when I think of the actual action, the actual progress we've made in the past, I guess in the digital age, since people have been able to actually see these videos, I think there's been a couple steps forward, but I don't think it's significant enough to offset the trauma. But at the same time, like if I'm raising a family, if I'm raising, two sons, would I rather have to explain what they're going to be growing up in, or would I rather have them, watch it on the television? And I think like I definitely want to kind of talk to them about it, educate them on it first, but I think it's just inevitable. And I think they're really only going to get it by that footage at the same time. So I think it's messed up because the trauma, experiencing that trauma is inevitable, is what I'm trying to say. So that I think, my answer has to be that we continue to use that as some kind of call to accountability. Because as of right now, that's the most, I think that's the best evidence we could find. And at the same time, I don't think it really reinforces more of the trauma than they would have to experience themselves later in life anyway. And it's just a terrible question to wrap my head around because it's just like we're exposed to so much and we don't realize it. But it's just kind of what we have to grow up with.
Thank you, David. Allyson, I'd love to hear your 2 cents.
Honestly, I definitely agree with Solange and David. I think that it's a very much so two-way street, but also I think that it is extremely traumatic to see Black people lose their lives on film. I think that I think there needs to be much more regulation on sensitivity content, trigger warnings, all of that. We need to be using that, especially if someone is going to repost that. I say don't repost Black Death, but also there is that footage was pivotal in locking up the man who committed it, Derek Chauvin. And I think that yeah, I think there just definitely needs to be more regulations on social media pertaining to sensitivity in these situations. But also, if we're looking at it from David's perspective in like family wise, there is so much that you can tell a child about their experiences of being Black. There's so much that you can shield them from, but social media is a thing. And I would hate for them to see it that way, but also, this is the world that we do live in, and we are definitely becoming desensitized from seeing death. So I think that's one thing that we just need to recalibrate as a society on how we view death and how we're seeing it every day. So those are my 2 cents. I can get in a tangent on that, but I'm gonna just cut it there.
Well, and that's great. So I want to kind of end this on a positive note. I'm going to toot my friend's own horn. And within the next year, what are you guys doing internship wise, job wise, that could possibly project us into a more positive direction as a nation? Allyson, do you have anything to share?
So I'm actually interning with the Victory Institute as a congressional intern. This is an organization founded on LGBTQIA people, Black folks, and those who are, as I am, a queer Black Southern woman who fall into those categories or who identifies with those labels are going to be working in offices on Capitol Hill, looking at policies surrounding minorities, looking at policies surrounding education and things of that nature. So that is what I'm doing. I'm committing myself to that, and I am going to be working very intensely on these things.
Well, I look forward to your progress. Yes, round of applause, round of applause. Congratulations. I wish you all the best. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's episode. Time flies when you're getting into great topics. I would like to just thank David and Allyson. Again, you guys are the only 2 guests that we've had on this series of TV shows who have been on here twice. So you guys are very special guests. So thank you so much for that. And to everybody watching at home, please be sure to check out inreachinc.org for more information related to this topic, upcoming events, and more information about what's going on in Prince George's County. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you all next time.
Thank y'all so much.